Hello, Social Work 3+1 students. Welcome to Social Work 321, week 14. Can you believe it? This is a great week. We're going to talk about culture and power in communication. I think these are important terms. We've talked so much about the value the value of understanding culture. And it's imperative that we recognize that our own culture is not ever the right culture, that every individual out there has their own unique perspective of the world, and their personal culture has a lot to do with that perspective. A big topic this week is beginning where the client is, and for your quiz, you're going to need to know what that means. How do you begin where your client is? Well, what if you're not from their culture? What if you know very little about their culture? I think it's imperative for social workers to have a broad understanding, especially in rural parts of the world. We need to have a good understanding of a variety of cultures. And how do we get that? If you haven't had the opportunity to travel a lot, that's okay, because you can go to your public library and go all over the world, right? I hope you are learning to be a voracious reader. If you're an audio learner like me, then listen to books and learn to understand other cultures. There's some wonderful authors out there. There's people like Frank McCourt, who helps us really understand the Irish culture and the immigrant culture. There are people like, there's a wonderful Native American author by the name of Sherman, I forgot his last name. But anyway, there's some wonderful authors out there that can really help you better understand cultures outside of your own. Cupcake Brown wrote A Piece of Cake, and this is a wonderful insight into inner city African American culture and what it's like to be a part of the foster care system. So be a reader. Read other people's life experiences. If you don't enjoy reading memoirs, then watch movies that are real life depictions of individuals who've been through a lot. Temple Grandin has written several books about the perspective of someone with autism spectrum disorder. This is an important perspective to have, and to better understand how these people are motivated and how they see the world. It's not defective, it's just different. One of the things that I want you to learn this week is helping clients make difficult decisions. And I think it's really important to understand that no decision is a decision. And clients can often get stuck when they feel like they have A or B, and they haven't even considered C. But not making a decision is okay. And so we're there to support whatever strengths we see in our clients and empower them to be able to make decisions. And if they can't make a decision, that's a decision. Make sense? You have some wonderful supplementary material this week, and you do have a quiz. This is a completely essay quiz, so I want to see your writing. I want to see you be able to, as my professor at Texas A&M University used to say, diarrhea of the pen. We want to know that you can talk about a subject in a test. I don't want any cutting and pasting, obviously. This is a 300 level class. We're way past that. But I want to know that you understand the concepts that are in your textbook that have to do with contracting with a client. I want to hear an example of what a contract is, and I can give you one. So let's say you have a client who is suicidal. Now, after evaluating, after talking with them extensively, you recognize that they don't necessarily have a plan, but they are having some of these thoughts. You recognize maybe this isn't perhaps to the point that you need to send this individual to the emergency room quite yet. You don't need to call the police to intercede, but there is some suicidal ideation going on. And so studies have shown that when a client contracts with a mental health professional, it decreases the likelihood that they will commit suicide. And it also basically covers you if you can show in your notes that you did a contract with an individual and you evaluated them and they told you, I'm not gonna go home and kill myself tonight. But that contract basically saying, I'm not going to hurt myself. If I feel these feelings, if I have these dark thoughts, here's a list of phone numbers that I'm willing to call. There's a lot of great contracts out there that are already made, templates for contracts. I use them a lot in school social work. And you can use contracts with a variety of clients. Let's go back to the thought I previously mentioned. What does it mean to begin where the client is? Well, if you're working with children, it's not so hard. You were a child once. You can put yourself in that kid's shoes, remembering what it was like to be vulnerable, to be dependent on others, to not have a whole lot of say in the choices that are made for you. This can be, for highly intelligent children especially, this can be incredibly frustrating. And so putting yourself in your client's shoes. We've talked so much about how if you come from a background of trauma, then it's kind of easier to have a built-in sense of empathy for clients that are going through difficult things. But that doesn't mean you have to come from a background of trauma to be a social worker. This last weekend, my son-in-law, who is working for the military, had to be sprayed with mace, pepper sprayed. Yeah, I didn't know that they did that, but I guess if you're in criminal justice, if you're someone who's going to be in the position of spraying someone with mace, part of the training is to be sprayed yourself with it. And I guess they mace, pepper spray, I guess they're kind of interchangeable, but my son-in-law said it's a very scary situation to be in, and you really can't breathe. You can't see. My daughter had to pick him up. His wife had to pick him up because he wouldn't be able to see for like 2.5 hours. He wouldn't be able to drive. Can you imagine? But as social workers, that's part of the perspective we need to have. We need to put ourselves in our client's shoes. We need to begin where they are. And it's easy to give advice, but it's not always warranted. There are times when it might be appropriate, but advising isn't the biggest job that you have. Giving your client a safe place to figure out solutions is your job. So, what are tasks? Your textbook on page 424 and 425 define what client tasks are. And we also call these between session tasks. When I was a clinical social worker, I would call it giving my client homework. There are action steps that clients take during the intervals between your meetings. Sometimes social workers refer to client tasks as homework. Now, you might have a client that doesn't appreciate this. If you had someone that struggled with the academia world and homework feels like a burden, then you might want to phrase it something different. You might want to call it, I don't know. You guys are creative. You will come up with a good term. Task is a good term. Here's something for you to work on. Homework or tasks done at home in between sessions, it's a great way to keep a client on task. It's a great way to keep them accountable for their behavior, for their change for the better. And again, it's not your job to fix the client. It's their job to figure out how to fix themselves. So what is a worker task? So this is what a social worker will complete outside of the context of the meetings with the client. There's also what we call in-session tasks and maintenance tasks. So an in-session task, these are procedures, activities, or intervention techniques that you or your client undertake during your meetings together. And it can be very empowering for a client. If you've given them resources and they haven't been able to, bring themselves, when you're working with people with depression, it's kind of hard for them sometimes to make that phone call. So you can do that with them in the office. Maintenance tasks are regularly occurring personal or situational activities that become routine and help the client. So for clients who are schizophrenic, taking that medication every day can be a maintenance task. For almost everybody out there, going on a walk in the sunshine, 10 minutes out there getting some vitamin D naturally can be a great maintenance task to assign to your client. There have been times that has been a a in-session task for me, especially when I'm working with hyperactive kids and they need to get out. And so we'll go on walks. And it's interesting how children will talk a lot, and teenagers especially. Sometimes they'll open up even more when you're walking side by side than when you're, across the table from that individual or face to face with that individual. There's something about that companionship of side to side where sometimes individuals open up even more. So you've got some wonderful assignments this week. You've got some great supplementary videos, and I believe there's also an essay in there that I want you to read to better understand working with clients. Don't hesitate to call, text, or email me if you have any questions or concerns. Have a great week.